Gem Drill is an episode that cements Peridot's role as a fully fledged member of the Crystal Gems. It also solves that pesky problem of the Earth's impending obliteration by the cluster, but honestly, it's the interactions and dialogue between Peridot and Steven that I found the most captivating about this episode. In the episode Log Date 7152, Peridot was still coping with the trauma of revolting against Homeworld and the authority figure she's regarded as essentially a deity her entire life. In the previous episode, Super Watermelon Island, she simply sat behind and waited for the gems to return. But now, Peridot goes on her first formal mission as an inducted member of the Crystal Gems, and what a critical and dire mission it is! It's up to Peridot and Steven to stop the emergence of the cluster by themselves. Before the two even hop into the drill, Peridot gets some excellent and comedic lines of dialogue.
Am I the only one who understands the meaning of teamwork?
This ironic statement is great, as it both plays on Peridot's previous refusal to work with others due to her views on perceived roles, while also showcasing that Peridot now has a desire to be part of a tightly knit team. Furthermore, after originally being captured, Peridot expressed the desire for just her and Steven to stop the cluster by themselves.
If we want to stop this cluster thing, we'll need help from the Crystal Gems.
I said I don't need them!
Now, she's upset and frustrated that the rest of the Crystal Gems can't tag along for the mission. The green Dorito has grown so much since then. And her shouting,
Liar!
After Steven reassures her per her own request? Hilarious! Also, it's more dialogue that I can't imagine the old Peridot ever saying, yet again demonstrating how much her behavior has changed in the recent months. Later in the episode, when Steven and Peridot fear they're too late and it's all over, Peridot voices a heartfelt apology that is amazingly honest and also really amusing.
Steven, I'm sorry I couldn't save you or the billions of other life forms who matter far, far less to me!
I love the injection of comedy into this scene. It's a perilous and tense moment that creates tender and forlorn feelings in the viewer, and yet it still puts a smile on your face at the same time. And Peridot's response to Steven's last words being that he loves her?
Wow, thanks.
Another brilliant parallel to an exact line of dialogue Peridot has had in the past.
And wow, thanks!
The last time she uttered these words, she was still appreciative, but hid that fact under her bitter and conceited personality. In this moment, there's nothing but the utmost sincerity, and she looks to be on the verge of tears that somebody cares about her that much. And speaking of tears, Peridot actually sheds a tear while discussing an emotional topic with Steven earlier during the drilling. Peridot recounts her memories of Homeworld and how she won't be able to return to her place of origin. She's glad she's found new friends and things to care about, but she's still saddened how she won't be able to visit the place she came from. Crying. That's pretty much the final thing you need to officially become a Crystal Gem! Peridot has done it! Somebody get her a star!
Where am I gonna put the star?
Alright, so now that I finished being giddy about the culmination of Peridot's development, let's talk about the resolution to the cluster arc. Let me just say the sequence was a feast for the senses. The music was amazing, the reflective multicolored cluster looked awesome, and the depiction of the collective mind of the cluster was also incredible, especially when it shouts out in agony. The visual spectacle component of it all was simply fantastic. As for the events that unfold, I had three possibilities in my mind after the drill reached the cluster. Steven and Peridot actually destroy it, Steven finds a way to prevent it from emerging, or something completely different and totally unexpected goes down. We know Steven would want to avoid destroying it, and he makes multiple comments indicating how he wants to help rather than to destroy. But Peridot's excellent stern responses such as,
There is no helping them. It doesn't matter if it knows what it's doing. It's still going to do it.
Made me think that there was a legitimate chance that, for once, Steven would have to set aside his kindness and cope with the emotional burden of doing so. But nope, Steven managed to find a workaround. Steven's kindness and ability to connect with others basically makes him have the Force.
As if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror.
This scene was amazing, by the way. Steven hyperventilating as he sees manifestations of the destroyed shards screaming at him? Wow! And then he passes out and astral projects into the collective consciousness of the cluster. With the help of the shards, he manages to bubble the entire thing. I think there's some indications that bubbles around shards are pretty much like a metaphorical womb. The bubble provides feelings of comfort and safety, and probably even timelessness too. Remember when Peridot got unbubbled and thought she was still mid-battle? So Steven's giant bubble manages to cease the unending pain and torment the shards were subject to, although in the end, it's still merely postponing a problem that eventually has to be dealt with in some other way. So here's the thing. I liked this resolution. However, there was so much build-up, so many episodes leading to this, and it's a planetary-level threat unlike anything Steven Universe has shown before. For a pivotal point in the plot of such enormous significance, I want the resolution to leave me completely astounded. I want to be blown away, and when the credits at the end of the episode start rolling, I want to exhale the breath I didn't even know I was holding. So there was a feeling of slight disappointment because I thought the resolution was good, but I wanted it to be phenomenal. And I didn't think it reached that level. I'm still conflicted on what exactly didn't resonate with me, but it's likely an amalgam of multiple issues, and I'll just briefly discuss them all. For one, the naive yet heartfelt desire to save the day through kindness is a little underwhelming when it's done so quickly. For character redemptions that take many episodes and have tons of context to back up the change, it works. But in this episode, it didn't quite feel satisfying. Steven also made it look too easy. He tells the cluster not to form, it says it wants to be whole, he says you guys already have each other, and the cluster's like, cool dog, thanks. We didn't realize the millions of whispering voices meant there's more than one of us here. I get that Steven is basically channeling the minds of countless shards towards a singular idea, whereas before they were overwhelmed by instinctual urge to be whole, resulting in chaotic agony. It is an acceptable premise, but it's not a mind-blowing premise. Just a few very obvious lines of dialogue making the cluster decide it doesn't want to form, it's not very compelling. Honestly, I feel like any of the crystal gems could have had this exact conversation with the cluster, which means Steven being the one to do it doesn't feel as important. Having more time for this scene may have helped, but I think the writing being more intricate and complex would have helped more than just giving the scene additional time. I actually thought when Steven exclaims,
You can just stay here!
The cluster would respond with rage and Steven would have to backpedal a bit and try to calm it down again. I mean, imagine, you're a small essence of your former identity trapped in writhing agony for thousands of years, and somebody tells you, hey, you can just stay here. I'd be like, hell no, I don't want to destroy the Earth, but I do not want to remain like this either. Yet, the cluster was perfectly fine and dandy with Steven's brash and inconsiderate suggestion. Another issue I had is actually something I never thought I'd criticize this late into the show. A character's voice acting. Steven's voice just didn't pack the emotion to match the scene. He's witnessing unbearable agony all around him while the entire Earth is on the verge of destruction. Yet his voice just doesn't pack the range and sensitivity that I think it should. Steven emoted more in the first episode of this show, when he buried an ice cream wrapper.
Farewell, sweet cookie cats. I'll always remember the time we spent together.
With the criticism aside, I do have to give major praise to the bubbling itself, though. Steven tries to do something despite the futility of it, which inspires others around him. It's very in line with the themes around Steven's role in the show. I also think Steven's unique bubbling ability made this final act something only he could do. I seriously doubt any other gem could have united all the smaller bubbles together into one giant protective sphere like he did. So overall, I thought this was a great episode, but because the events it's portraying have been built up so much and hold such significance, great wasn't good enough, if that makes any sense. There was a feeling of being underwhelmed by the end result, despite how much enjoyment I still had from the journey. Is that somewhat unfair to the episode? Maybe, but I personally think criticism is simply trying to pin down the emotions you felt and then figuring out the reasons why you had them. And if somebody thought an episode was great, yet still felt disappointed by it, well, I think that just demonstrates that the show being reviewed is multifaceted and complex.